Have you ever been given a second choice? When you somehow, in some way, disappointed someone, and that person lost faith in you and doesn't feel like they can trust you anymore. And when that happens, you feel cut off, disenfranchised, and you just feel that relationship is gone kaput. But what if that person came to you and said they'd like to give you a second chance? First of all, that came from a big-hearted person who was willing to forgive you and reestablish a relationship of trust. Now, there's a story in the New Testament of someone who was given a second chance. And that was Mark. Now, who was Mark? Well, Mark, many people think was an apostle, but he wasn't. He was just a follower and a disciple of Jesus. And he was a cousin of Barnabas. And Barnabas was a disciple of Paul. And when Paul decided to go on his journey up through Asia Minor, he took Barnabas with him. And Barnabas brought Mark. And sometime during this journey, Mark, for whatever reason, we don't know whether they had an argument or a disagreement about something, but whatever, Mark decided that he was going to leave this mission and go back home. And so he does. Paul decided to go on a second missionary journey. And when he did, he took Silas with him. And Barnabas and Mark went on their own journey to Cyprus. And they preached and they converted the peoples. And then eventually, Mark made his way up to Rome, where he hooked up with Peter and eventually became Peter's interpreter. And during this time when he spent with Peter, he was writing down all the experiences that Peter shared with him about his life and journey with Jesus for those 3 years. Yes, Mark scribed the life of Jesus for the first time. And as a result, we have the gospel. Now later, we have 2 other writers, Matthew, Luke, and they also wrote gospels, but they were based on the framework of the writing of St. Mark. Yes, these 3 gospels presented to us the life of Jesus based on Mark's experiences as were dictated to him by Peter. Now, had not Barnabas given Mark a second chance, we may never have had the Gospels. We may never have had a written version of the life of Jesus. And look what's happened. Because he was given a second chance, we now know, 2,000 some odd years later, the life of Jesus, how he lived and how he wants us to live. Second chance. There was another person who was given the second chance, and that was Paul himself. We know that Paul was a Pharisee. He didn't like these new Christians because they weren't preaching what he was taught. And so he went about feverishly rounding them up, turning them over, and hoping that they would be persecuted and even put to death. But God had another plan for Paul. Blinded him, sent him away to a man named Ananias. And when Ananias heard that Paul was coming to his house, he was obviously frightened because he knew the reputation of Paul and he didn't want to go to persecution either. But when the knock came and Ananias opened the door, he let Paul in. And he didn't scold him. He didn't lecture him. He just said, brother. Brought him in, took care of him, let him live with him for a while, told him all the things that Jesus had done, and in a sense, converted him. And as a result, we have the greatest evangelist that ever lived. And without that, maybe Christianity, we know Christianity wouldn't have been a worldwide religion because it wouldn't have been spread, at least the way we know it today. So, a second chance. changed Paul's life, and in a sense, changed the world. Now, how does that have to do with us? What does that have to do with us? How many second chances have you been given? When you failed and you haven't done what you should do, or you've disappointed somebody and they came back and gave you a second chance, what did you do with it? And if you're in the situation, have you given others a second chance when they've disappointed you and maybe didn't do what you wanted them to do and you lost faith in them, but you gave them another chance? And we all have that opportunity. Jesus came to give us not only a second, a third, a fourth, an infinite number of chances. That's why he came and died for us. He came and died for us to give us the chance that we need to get back to heaven. And so we need to accept second chances.